منظمة المجتمع العلمي العربي.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Muhammad Imran, and I work as a senior scientist at Qatar Computing Research Institute. This is one of the three research institutes that we have in Qatar under Hamad bin Khalifa University. So today I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence for disaster response. So before I take a deep dive into the kind of solutions that we develop, the focus, I want to briefly give you an overview of the focus of our institute and our team. So the crisis computing team at QCRI focuses on developing AI technologies to help humanitarian organizations and different governments around the world to tackle disasters. For example, we have been developing technologies to do rapid damage assessment, urgent needs assessment after large-scale disasters, or situational awareness. We have a long-standing relationship with United Nations agencies, and I'll show some of the works that we have done with them during real-world disasters. So along the way, it's been like 10 years that we're working on this in this domain, and over the 10 years duration, we have developed several systems. You can see many systems here, and these systems have been used by many stakeholders around the world. So today I'm going to show you some of those systems, how we developed and how they were useful during large-scale disasters. So I want to begin with one of our recent deployments that was in flooding in Pakistan. So in 2022, around August-September months, the Pakistan experienced unprecedented flooding, which kind of submerged 1/3 of the country, where more than 1,500 people were killed. Millions of people were affected due to this disaster. So at the onset of this disaster, as it was making landfall to different districts and cities, etc., the government was really confused to where to start. What are the priority areas, which are the most hit geographical areas to start with, and what are the population needs, etc. So we were requested to deploy our technology to specifically answer these 5 questions. What is the extent of flooding in the country? How many people are exposed to that flooding? And how those people are affected, like their houses are destroyed or their crops are destroyed. And what are their needs? What is it that they need today, tomorrow, and within the next few days? And what kind of damage incurred to this flooding disaster? So in order to answer these questions, as I said earlier, we focus on developing AI-based, machine learning-based technologies to use non-traditional data sources like satellite image processing and social sensing data to answer these questions, to extract insights of different kinds. So I'll show you how we try to answer this question using these 2 types of data sources and with the help of AI. So we have developed a system called Flood Insights. This system combines mainly 3 types of sources: remote sensing, which are satellite images; social sensing, which are different types of social media data that you collect in the form of textual messages that the people post, or people send images, share images of their flooded streets or damaged houses, and so on and so forth. And then geospatial data, like different layers, population density, road network, hospital locations, etc. So below you can see the pipeline and different component of this system. Almost all of these boxes that you see, they have AI or machine learning models that we have developed over the years. So I'm not going to go into the detail of this, but mainly these are the 2 pipelines. The first pipeline is, responsible to collect and process satellite data, and the next pipeline is to collect and process social media textual data as well as imagery data. So when we only analyze satellite imagery that we collected from Pakistan, we collected around 1,600 snapshots of satellite images around those days when the flooding hit different areas in Pakistan. And then we did weekly analysis as well, like how to see the progression of flooding hitting different geographical areas in the country. You see this map, and the red color shows here the flood extent, the blue color shows the permanent water body, it could be a river, and so on and so forth. So from here you can get a bird eye view of which areas are flooded or which provinces. Here, for example, you see that Sindh province was flooded for all 4 weeks, more than any other province in Pakistan. So from here you can get a very high level overview of the geographical areas which were hard hit, and then you can focus on those. So to answer the questions that I showed you earlier, we took a deep dive and tried to see how many people are living within those affected areas where you see the red color concentration is larger compared to other areas in Pakistan. So on your left side, you see a graph which shows 160 circles, right? So each circle represents a district in Pakistan. The x-axis of this chart shows the area of that district in log scale, and the y-axis is the population. The color shows the intensity of the flooding in the respective district. And from here you can easily understand or find districts which are hard hit, which are bigger, where the population is mostly exposed, and so on. So to help the government and UNDP further, we tried to did this grid-based analysis, where we try to find how many people which are exposed living in 1 by 1 kilometer square grid, and what is the flood extent there. So this was hugely helpful for the agencies as well as the government to not only pivot their focus towards hard-hit districts, but also within district to a very fine-grained area, like which cities and within cities which may be streets, right, and so on and so forth. So not only that, how many people are exposed, we try to further took a deep dive and try to see the segregation of exposed population within those districts, and try to find the distribution of children affected, adults and affected, elderly, and adults. So this was hugely useful for agencies which focus on different gender, right? For example, UNICEF would be more interested in insights about children, where most children are affected, so they would focus on in those areas. So on your left side, you can see that we found that 6.8 million children are affected, 1.7 adolescent, and 9.6 adults, and so on and so forth. But so this can be done using satellite imagery, right? So you have snapshot of an area, you run your models to detect flooding or not, then you see with different types of geospatial layers how many roads are affected, or how many people are affected. But with this satellite alone, you cannot determine the kind of damage, right? So in this case, we use radar imagery, Sentinel-1 synthetic aperture radar imagery, which is not optical image to give you maybe the RGB view of a flooded road or a destroyed house, and so on and so forth. And for obvious reason, we use this radar imagery because this is a weather-induced event, and optical imagery cannot penetrate through clouds, so you cannot, get those snapshot in different areas. So, but the point here is, with satellite, you can only get to certain level. You cannot determine the kind of damages incurred due to disaster and how people are affected, whether their crops are damaged, their house is damaged, and so on. So for that, we combined, this analysis with social media data. So we gathered around 9 million Twitter messages that people posted from different cities and districts in Pakistan in mainly 2 languages. One is Urdu, which is the native language, and the other one is English. And we try to analyze those textual messages specifically to understand what are different needs that these people are expressing through these messages. So on the y-axis, you see that we have a list of needs here, right? So, for example, someone is requesting about shelter or mosquito net or some sort of medicine and so on and so forth. On the x-axis, you see again those 160 districts in Pakistan. So from this heat map, you can immediately understand which districts are in what kind of need, right? So this was hugely useful for the government to understand, at different temporal window, we generated several of these heat maps to help them understand different types of needs in different districts. Not only that, we also use the images that people posted online to understand, what kind of damage, to residential buildings or to road and street or other kind of infrastructure. So we collected around 400,000 images that people posted from within those affected districts. And, these are some of the messages that our models, predicted as carrying information about residential flooding, which are this corner, and residential damage, right? So you see that, we have a model that can detect residential scenes which are flooded, and then residential scenes which are damaged but not flooded, and so on and so forth. We have other models to detect, very specific other types of scenes, for example, debris, and so on and so forth. So, and then, roads and streets which are flooded and roads and streets which are damaged. Similarly, other types of infrastructure like railway lines, gas stations, electricity poles, and so on and so forth. So this was again hugely useful when we try to combine the textual data and imagery data together to come up with a map that shows them, where the most of the damage was incurred due to flooding. So this is a kind of normalized damage score that takes into consideration the population in that respective district, how many total volume of messages emerged from that district, as well as the signals, right? So you know that from social media, the signal to noise ratio is a big challenge. So you have to do certain types of normalization to convert your data seen as a, plausible insight. I'll show you a few other things. So we have collaborated a lot with UNDP, especially with their building damage assessment use case, where we have developed several systems specifically for that purpose, and we deployed those systems during, many, real-world disasters. So right after Beirut explosion in 2020, UNDP asked us to deploy our social media-based system to do early situational awareness and damage assessment, like which areas where people are posting about their, damages to their property. So we try to here, showcase them images that show severe damage, right? So severe damage means a house which is non-livable, right? This is according to the definition of Red Cross. Or a mild damage which is partially livable. Severe damage road is which is not drivable, and so on and so forth. We also deployed this system in collaboration with FEMA and CERT communities in the US during many hurricanes. Hurricane Dorian is one major example. Again, the task was to identify damage reports posted by the general public online as the hurricane was making landfall to different areas. So this is in real time. So this dashboard, this map is being updated in real time as people are posting online their images. So in this specific case, not only they consumed our data, they validated, their experts validated our data, whether what our system is saying is correct or not. Specifically, when we say that this image is severe damage, whether it's correct or not. So, they analyzed, this was a deployment of maybe 10 days. So they analyzed around 29,000 images that our system produced as, true positive, as if, indeed has severe flooding or as damage or not. So we see that we reached around 76% real world accuracy. So this is not, lab accuracy, this is a real world accuracy where, your experts are giving you feedback about what your system is producing in the wild, right? This is not a test set, held out test set on which we are measuring the accuracy. So this was pretty much, impressive in that sense. Turkey City earthquake, we deployed again on the request of UNDP. Before I show you what product, what kind of dashboard we built, I want to show you the kind of messages that people posted online. So these are some of the messages. For example, I'll read you the first message right after, maybe the second day of the earthquake. So someone is saying that we are in the container area at Atakia Expo. We need a mini cabinet, a mini oven. We will cook by ourselves, now help. Small children have disability. This is a Google translation of a Turkish message that we collected. And similarly, we collected around 95 million such messages. This is a so huge volume of information that even human experts want to analyze, they cannot, right? So you need to have machine learning and AI methods to sift through, extract insights, and give to the agencies in real time. You see that there are different types of worries that people are, talking about, missing their children and their loved ones. They're asking for shelter, rescue, and, search and rescue, damage reports, and so on and so forth. Specifically, UNDP asked us to focus on 3 issues. The first one is they wanted to know that what is the distribution of, missing people reports emerging from different cities in Turkey. So we analyzed, as I said, we collected 95 million Twitter messages in Turkey, in Turkish language, and around 3.6 million images. So we did, this analysis, again, processed by our AI methods to see the distribution of missing people report. And, you can see that I'm just zooming into the areas which was the near to the ground zero, where the earthquake proximity is not big. And then the second type of analysis that we did is the shelter request. So to identify what kind of shelter, at what time, in which area they are requesting. So then we try to map that into different cities to give them a high-level overview of which areas where most of the shelter requests are emerging from. Lastly, based on the image-based analysis, so this is, as I said, we collected more than 3 million images, so we analyzed them to see the distribution of damage reports coming from different cities in Turkey for agencies to, do whatever their kind of disaster response they want to do. Well, so as a computer scientist working with practitioners for over 10 years, I would say, and you see the recent advances in artificial intelligence, I would say you guys and whoever wants to leverage AI, this is the best time. AI, has been showing strides, has been helping in different domains. From health, to finance, and so on and so forth. So why not in disaster response, right? So for emergency response, so this is the focus of our team, to leverage AI techniques to solve real-world humanitarian issues. And the second point is, I guess, is for me and more computer scientists, that we always wish and focus to involve practitioners in our earlier, setup of a project. So to ground our, direction towards solving a real-world problem rather than publishing papers only. And of course, when you use social media data, try to embrace for, different types of changes in data drifts and anomalies, etc. Data quality, of course, you would have many questions that I showed you many interesting insights, but of course, what I showed you is a 1 or 2% of the data that we collect. 98% of the data is, is a noise. It's not useful. So in order to get those useful nuggets, this is a kind of problem of finding needle in a haystack. Data annotation, is a very important step when you try to train your machine learning, models. You need to have, high quality data on your side to get high quality models. And as I showed you in case of hurricane, error analysis, having practitioners in the loop is the best you can do. So do always that to, validate your solutions. Thank you very much. And if you have any question, I'd love to answer those.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imran, for this inspiring presentation, which shows the capacity of data collection and analysis, and also citizen participation through social media.
Yes.
It's really very, very inspiring. And also for all the examples which you have illustrated, which are really very important. Yeah. Is there any question? في أسئلة?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for an interesting presentation. I'm just wondering about if you have a recent results regarding applying the AI or machine learning and deep learning about your the mentioned results or problems you have presented here.
So as a research institute, we publish research papers. So on this site, crisiscomputing.qci.org, you'll find all of our papers. And then you'll find a link where we publish the data that we have collected and labeled to help other community members to develop their own models, right? So the kind of models that we are developing might not be aligned with your priorities, so you can develop those models. So there is a very famous data repository that we have been maintaining for over 8 to 10 years. It's called crisisnlp.qci.org. I think you can find the link on this Crisis Computing website. So these are, and then most of our systems are open source, so you can use those systems and code is available.
Just if you can give us a little bit or a specific info about a specific problem you have solved via AI.
Okay. So I can say that there are two main kind of problems that we have been targeting to solve. One is early situational awareness. So when you have, at the onset of a major disaster, when your survey people cannot reach to the disaster zone, so you cannot dispatch teams to, analyze the area, you can use either remote sensing or, general public data, crowdsourcing data, which is, social media is one form of that, right? To get early insights, right? So situational awareness, like how big was the disaster, how many people are affected, and in what ways it affected that population. This is one, right? The situational awareness, rapid situational awareness. And then the second major problem that we try to solve is using computer vision techniques to look at the images that people post to assess the severity of the damage. So this is useful for UNDP and Red Cross and many other agencies around the world to do what they call a rapid damage assessment. So right after a disaster, traditionally you try to, assess the area to understand the damage distribution to different, subnational areas. So with this technique, we have the AI models which can, given the image stream, can give you the damage assessment. And then, of course, all of this data is not useful unless you map it, right? So if you have geo-mapping capability, that's how you can make it informative, right? So we have developed, algorithms which use different types of data, metadata, to find the signals to effectively geo-map the data instances. And these are just a few systems and deployment I showed. We have many other, success stories.
Thank you. One question there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much, Dr. Imran. Probably I'm commenting on both your presentation and that of Dr. Salihi. The scientific dimension is very important, but it's only a part of the humanitarian architecture that we need to look at. Today, we have seen how important is the scientific dimension. Let's also talk about the operational and practical dimension. Dr. Salihi has mentioned to what extent it was very important that the communities be prepared, that agents on the local side go and talk to the people and tell them that they are in a very risky place and convince them to move out of that place and probably to prepare alternative locations for them and how to live decently from there. So what I would like you to integrate more is those other aspects or anchors or angles of the humanitarian or the disaster response agent, who are mainly human skills, behaviors, and knowledge. And the social dimension of preparing the communities themselves and the people who work to respond. Today, if we look at the cycle of the humanitarian response, it starts by an appeal. Go and take any one of the cases that you have studied here. By the time you reach the field, 30 days go away. How many people have lost their lives, their livelihood, and how many injuries have taken place? Now, the new paradigm should be prioritizing, creating on the ground, in every disaster-prone area, enough institutions that are well capacitated and well prepared to act the next minute or the next second, and even prepare before on the preventive points that were mentioned by Dr. Salihi. Thank you very much. And أغتنم هذه الفرصة لأحيي الحقيقة منظمة المجتمع العلمي العربي لأدائها المتميز المتواصل وتعبئتها لهذه الطاقات وحشدها لهذه المعارف الموقرة المحترمة المرموقة وجزاها الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.
Thank you very much. After, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for this presentation, and you can continue after.
منظمة المجتمع العلمي العربي